good day and welcome to the Business Brunch, the show where you can connect, learn and thrive. I'm Vanessa Ashworth. I am a marketer. We've been doing this now for how many months? Almost November, wasn't it? Was it November?
10 months we've been doing this.
So if you don't know me, well, welcome to the show for the first time, but hopefully this isn't your first time. So I'm a marketer, and then Sarah Farmer, who is my colleague, is an executive coach. Do you want to say anything more, Sarah, about who you are?
Yeah, well, I'm executive coach. I work with senior leaders and their teams, helping them develop their mindset and the skills to achieve crazy brilliant results. But I also work with lots of entrepreneurs as well and small business owners. So I have the best job in the world. I know you all say the same, but it's mine. I have the best job.
Good. And so normally you might notice, there is three of us. Melinda is on holiday. I think she's on a plane at the minute coming back from Italy. So she'll be back with us the next Business Brunch. So welcome to the show. Please do say hello in the comments. Let us know that you're there. As always, we go live on many different platforms, so you probably won't be the only one. Mm-hmm. However, we are expecting fewer people to be watching today. Obviously, from the events of last week, with the very sad passing of the Queen, I still get choked up thinking about it. We at first we were questioning, do we do the show at all? But certainly we did not want to launch or do any promotion of the show over the weekend. That was a no-no. And it was only this morning that Sarah and I had a chat, and we thought, actually, it feels all right to go ahead. Now, a lot of you will have lots of different emotions about that. And if you want to share that in the comments, and if you want to talk about that, because it is still quite fresh, and we are in a period of mourning now, up until the funeral next Monday, which means there won't be a show next Monday, definitely not. But then, tell us how you're feeling. We welcome. We are your working from home team, aren't we? And we always say that we kind of discuss the kind of things that we discuss around the water cooler. And so for all of those who are working remotely or on your own, we're here for you. So if you want to share anything, please do. Whilst you're saying hello in the comments, and we'll kind of bring those comments on, let's find out what today's show is all about, Sarah.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to echo what you've just said as well, is that the feelings from last week can still be a little bit raw, and people are coping with things in different ways. I'm not a monarchist, but I absolutely adored the Queen and I loved the royal family, but I'm not, what you call a monarchist. And I was surprised how upset I was. And I was on a course on Friday morning, and there was an opportunity to say something and just, share how you were feeling. I burst into tears in front of people I barely know. And I mean, that's just not like me. Really strong guys, really strong women are really upset. So if you want to share anything, then please do. But what is it all about today? So today is about onboarding. Oh my goodness, do I love this topic. Is it the same? It's one of my favorites, along with imposter syndrome, obviously. But today's show is all about helping people understand what the problem is with onboarding. Where does it start? What are the real rates of failure? Are they as big and as bad and scary as people are making out? What are the main causes of it and what you can do about it? But what I'm going to do today is split it into two parts, because the actual onboarding itself, where I spend a lot of my time working and helping people there, is massive on its own. Mm-hmm. So I will have a nod to that today, but I'm going to look at everything that happens before the onboarding, because we can be putting lots of band-aids over massive gaping wounds when actually there is something we can do before we get there, from an employer and an employee angle. Perfect. So that's what we're up to today.
Excellent. So as I said at the beginning, we are all about connect, learn and thrive. So we want you to connect with each other, because together we rise. Learn. Every show we want to give you some new knowledge. We want to help you to learn something that will help you in your professional and a private life. And with that knowledge, you will thrive. And I think onboarding is important for the employer as well as the person being onboarded. It's something we can all learn from, perfect preparation and all that. So I'm looking forward to that. So shall we say hello first, and then
let's say hello to who's in.
Who it is. Let's see who's in. So we have Darren Hall, who says hello. Hello, Darren. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Darren.
Andy is here, and he said it's good to see you both again. It's good to have you with us, Andy. Thank you.
Andy.
And Danny is here, of course. Thank you, Danny, for joining us. And we've Thomas Murphy says good afternoon, all. So,
and can I just say, I haven't commented on your post yet today, Danny, but I saw it and I just thought, what a darn good post. So if you haven't seen Danny's post today, maybe stick it in the link and give that some love, because it was a very interesting one. For those of us that post on LinkedIn and we want followers or don't want followers, it was really interesting. So go and have a look at that. Pop it in the chat if you want to, Danny, the link to it, so people can go and have a look.
Excellent. And then we've got a very mysterious Facebook user, Lisa, on Facebook. Welcome, Lisa.
Which Lisa is it?
Who knows? Is it your Lisa, my Lisa, Melinda's Lisa?
Someone else's Lisa.
Somebody else's Lisa. Who knows? But hello. Thank you for joining us. So, yeah, I mean, you were saying, just wanting to go back to the events of the week, which quite a somber mood over the weekend a little bit. But I must say that and I think the one reason why it has affected us all much more than we might have thought it would is the idea that she has always been there. And then, like you said before we went on air, it was a shock, which is silly to think of it being a shock because, she was 96 years old and we'd seen how she's becoming more frail in the media. But she has always been there all our lives. And so it was a shock. But one thing, and I did a post about it on Friday, I kind of shared my feelings about it, because when the news came, at the end of that announcement were the words, "God save the King." And it took me back just for a slight second, because obviously it was new and when you see films and the king is murdered and then someone says the king is dead, God save the king, I always thought that was really cold and dismissive and disrespectful of that person and their legacy. But when the words God save the king appeared at the end of that broadcast and at the end of people's speeches, it gave me that security back, I think. The Queen has died, that our rock, our solid grounding, the person who's always been there for us, how we feel, which is, but then straight away, God save the King, and it's, he's here for us. It's going to be all right.
Yeah, there's it's we've talked about change a lot on this show, and I've talked about the human psychological needs, and one of them is certainty, and it affects when we feel less certain about what's going to happen. And let's face it, we've felt uncertain for years now. COVID, energy crisis, you name it. We're just like, oh my God, how much more can we take? So we're already slightly battered, and then to lose the person that we all knew and have majority of us have grown up with being in our lives in some shape or form. It was another knock, and we want the certainty. So I think what you're describing is, I've got certainty back. It's okay. We're going to be all right, and I'm sure we will be, and I'm sure he's going to do an absolutely cracking job.
I think so. I mean, 75 years in training.
I mean, that's one hell of a training course.
Absolutely. That's an onboarding, isn't it? Thank you.
Yes. So talking of onboarding, how do you have a 75-year training program or onboarding program that gets you ready for success, but you've only got that long to do it in, really?
Yeah.
Okay, it was Lisa Foley on Facebook. My Lisa.
Oh, right. Oh, well, I know Lisa too, actually.
Oh, and Danny's just,
it's the certainty, absolutely the driver. Yeah, absolutely. And it is the old kind of, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? It's that ground foundational security that we all need. So yeah.
So shall we move on into our the main feast of today? And please feel free to pop your comments in if you've got anything you want to share about what's happened since Thursday. But also, if you've got any questions about onboarding, what's happened to you, share any stories. I speak to people on a regular basis who are either going through it, have been through it, and they're really brilliant, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we've been going through a period of great change, and with COVID, and lots of people have been made redundant, found themselves on the job market, and have been going through this process when they've not done it for a long time, myself included, twice now. So it has affected a lot of us, and we are familiar with it, unfortunately. So go on, tell us how bad is it? I know I've got my own horror story, but how bad is it? What are the statistics?
So there's lots of stats flying around, and I obviously, because of the work that I do, I've done a lot of research into it. I think the most insightful ones for me that really got me thinking about this in more detail and how could it be better were there's the one from the Gallup survey, which says 12% of employees say only 12% of employees say their organization has done onboarding well enough, which is horrendous. There's so many things within that there, and that's what got me thinking is, well, why does that all happen? The failure rate, and the failure is described as anybody that is no longer employed with you, it says within 12 to 18 months. So a lot of people with failed onboarding will leave earlier than that. But I thought it was interesting that actually that's quite a long period of time, 12 to 18 months. But that's how the failure rate is described. If you're asked to leave, or you're not leaving of your own accord, you're leaving because there's been a failure, that is classed as an onboarding failure. The numbers quoted range between 46% to 70% as the failure rate, which is really high. So my aim in life, I'm going to go low. I'm going to say it's about 50%. It's higher, but it's about 50%. And my job is to help people get that down to about 10%. That's my aim in what I do when I'm working with these people. So I suppose the question is, how on earth do you do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, how do you do it? But 50% is incredible, and the cost. I mean, we're aware of the cost of employing someone, not just it's just the time and the resources of everyone involved in that hiring process.
It's
and
huge.
Then all the time that you put into it, and then the time that you put into training, there's a huge cost. So
there's a massive cost, yeah.
So before we go into how we can stop it, why are these new hires failing?
And before we even look at why, let me just reminded me to share the actual figures. And again, this varies where you look. And I was looking at, because I work with senior leaders and executives, I was looking at that specifically. And the cost for a failure at an executive level starts at £716,000 in 1 year. That's just the start. And it can run into millions. And the reason that it can run into millions is obviously it depends on the seniority, the size of the company, the impact they have. But it affects productivity, it affects fulfillment, not just in the human that's unhappy. And I just want to say here, it's not the employee's fault necessarily. They haven't come in to do a bad job.
No.
It's just what's happened leads to a problem. So there's all sorts of things going on. But productivity, absenteeism rates can go up, presenteeism, the good old quiet quitting can start coming in as a result of a change leader that really isn't making you feel terribly fulfilled or wanting to perform beyond any expectation. Loss of potential business. If I'm being led by someone who's really not making me very happy, that's new into the business and I haven't settled with them, am I going out looking for more business, or am I complaining around the water cooler? That's where productivity and failure comes in. So there's all sorts of unknown, almost unquantifiable costs that lead people to believe that it can run into the millions. And when you're hiring a really senior level executive, they're coming in on hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars with a huge amount of impact across the global organization. That's when it can get huge.
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, yeah, it's not just the individual themselves, it's everyone they touch, isn't it? Yeah.
It's everyone they touch. And we think, oh, well, it's okay because they're up there. Everything they do trickles down into everybody that matters, even more than they do, because they're the ones doing the really hard work. They're the ones that are bringing in the money to the organization. I mean, everybody matters. But so there's a couple of people just said hello. I don't know if you want to just
let's say hello. So Lee Kavanagh's joined us. Welcome, Lee.
Hi, Lee.
And Paul Meakin as well.
Hello.
So that's an interesting picture, isn't it?
I'm assuming that's drinking coffee and not a beak.
Yeah. And so Danny, I know Danny's shared information about this before. It's one of his hot topics. Inefficient presenteeism is almost 5 times more costly in efficiency, well poisoning, etc., compared to someone simply not being there, absence. Deloitte. Yeah,
I like that. Thanks for sharing that, Danny. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at Nadine Sinclair, who posts some amazing articles onto LinkedIn. If you're interested in this area, she does a lot of great stuff, and she put something out a while ago which really shocked me, which was part of an article that was written. It showed that across Europe, it costs 400 billion euros a year for every organization in Europe as a result of lost time due to absenteeism, presenteeism, and attrition. 400 billion. So if any company right now wants to get better and retain the best staff and attract the best staff, they need to be doing this better, because they're losing loads of money. So it's not just about making more money and being number one. It's about losing less money in all of these things that could be solvable. Paul's just said, definitely coffee. It's not a beak. Okay, good. Because it looks like a very odd beak. It's only in tiny, so I couldn't really see it. Okay, so you asked me where does it go wrong, and how do we get to that? So there are lots of stages that people get through to get to a job, and I said this to you earlier, and I love the way your eyebrows went. What? I was going to talk about dating. It's a bit like a dating, courting and then getting married type thing. So I'll use that as a way to explain it. But we start off by attracting people. We want to attract them, and we do that through job specs, job posts. Maybe you've got recruiters calling around looking for people, headhunting. Then we go through screening. Then we go through selection. Then we go through hiring and saying yes or no. And then we go into onboarding. So the onboarding bit right at the end, I'm going to do next time, because that's huge on its own. We're going to look at the first 4. So you go on a dating app, because that's the way cool people do it now, right? You go.
It's cool. It just seems to be the only way, unfortunately.
I have no idea what happens out there, but
unfortunately, I do.
It sounds great fun, I think. Anyway, but you go on, you put on your picture, and this is a bit like the job spec, and obviously you put the best picture of yourself on, and they put the best picture on, and you say the nicest things, and the reality is probably something between the truth and something else. Most people are making themselves the best they can be, understandably so. So you attract the right mate. Then you start to go, so this is like where the job specs going out. So where does it go wrong with the job specs and things like that? I mean, feel free to put your comments in here. But job specs, often that catfishing. Danny just said it's job spec catfishing. Yes, something like that. The job specs aren't always clear. Now that's for a lot of reasons. A lot of the time they're just, we need somebody in this department. We've done that before. Stick that job spec out. We're in a hurry. Or the people that are putting the job specs out aren't told clearly enough. What are you looking for? And when I'm talking about what are you looking for, not just the skills, but what behaviors? And how do you describe your culture in all of this? So people know what they're applying for. I'd just like to see more chances for people to see the truth. Now, of course, we want them to see the best truth and not always the real truth. But if you're not giving people the truth from the first go, and then you get into a second date and a third date, then you get married. All right, that was a quick courtship. The realization of what is truth is going to hit you sooner or later. And that's what happens in onboarding. You get in and you didn't really know what the culture was. You didn't know your boss was a tyrant. You didn't know this. You didn't know that. And all of a sudden, the fear of starting a new job is tenfold because all these things you didn't know are affecting your certainty, and your fear goes up and your threat levels go up. So I don't know what you think, Vanessa. You've been through this, relatively recently, but from a job spec and an attraction point of view, could it be better?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think people, some people are guilty of thinking, oh, we need this title to do a job. And then they'll go online and copy another job spec and just think, oh, yeah, that sounds about right. But they won't actually think about what actually this role needs to achieve. Whereas if it just kind of stuck to what they actually really want, everyone would have a better idea of what the expectations are. And understanding, I think, from the hiring point, what the expectations are from the beginning and being really clear on that, of what that role will deliver, would save everyone a lot of pain. And it's interesting because I'm about to write a job spec because I'm going to hire somebody here and so this is all scribbling notes as always.
Good timing. So the other part of this isn't just what the employer does or what the recruiters are doing with the information. So the recruiters are only as good as the information they're given. Obviously, how they use that information and how authentic they are is up to them. We can't change that, and how driven they are by numbers as opposed to the values of. But let's not go there. I don't know enough about recruiting to have a strong opinion about that. Well, I do, but I do have a strong opinion, but I won't share it. Anyway, there are some very, very good recruiters out there. But the other person that's got responsibility at this stage is the future employee. Now, one of the things that's really fascinating when I work with my clients is when you ask them, well, what is it you really want? Yeah. No one's really thought it through. Or they think, I don't care. I'm running out of money and I get this. I'm running out of money. I've got to get a job. I'm in a do or die situation. That looks good enough. I'll go for it. That's also a massive problem because what happens is when you get the job, assuming you get the job, you're dissatisfied the second you walk in. You're already on the back foot in your own mind. And the mindset we have when starting a new job is critical, not just the skills or the strategy, but your mindset behind it's got to be right.
Yeah.
We've got
there are a few comments. Yeah. I wanted to say with that, I think we've got to stop using the word interview for that very reason, because it puts all the power in the employer and not.
Absolutely.
And if you change it to be a meeting where they're actually going to discuss, is this the right role for me? Are you the right company for me? And level that playing field to a meeting, I think you can. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. So a couple of years ago, I created something called the Interview Success Accelerator, and actually, there's 4 free exercises. If anybody wants that, is about to go through an interview process, is how to show up and make it a meeting of minds, and not be, oh, I need a job, and oh, you're the one that's going to give it to me, because the power shift, you're right, is totally wrong. But not just is the power shift wrong, but your mindset is wrong, which means you can't show up and be the star that you know you are. And it affects how you answer questions and everything. So if anybody wants, I've got to make this a pretty name, but there's the Interview Success Accelerator preliminary programs. They're free. There's 4 videos, 4 exercises. Let me know. Just drop me a DM or something.
Let's go to comments, shall we? So rewinding back a little bit, Danny says the measure of success for a recruiter is that the candidate matches the job spec as closely as possible, but a major driver of employee loyalty is being stretched in the role. Even if the job description was accurate, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Good point.
Lee says most companies have standard job specs that are sent out by HR, big fail, not always written by the hiring manager.
Yeah. And that is a massive problem. Yeah.
And then Paul adds, job specs aren't clear, outdated in most cases. Taking a detailed job brief seems to have disappeared. Culture, values, progression, what are the expectations for performance? When will they be reviewed? Recruiters need to be more thorough.
Well said, Paul. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then Danny adds, Lee, they often don't appreciate the difference between a job advert, a job description, and a job specification. Good points. They just get bundled together.
Mm.
there are very different purposes. That's interesting to break that down, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not thought of that, Danny. So thanks. And I'd be interested to see. I mean, my brain's thinking ahead of something at the moment, so I'm not going to concentrate on it. But what are the differences between all those three? What's the intent behind them? Who are they for? Who are they serving? And are they good enough? And the answer is probably no. So Andy said absolutely right. Re-meeting minds at the interview. The interview has to be two-way. It totally does. And it's how a lot of people are uncomfortable with that because they feel it's really arrogant. There's a bit of a parent-teacher. Parent-child mode going on. Is I'm going to look arrogant if I step up and not control, but have mutual control over this conversation. But when people do it and they have the confidence and they do it properly, we've got to think about communication styles and yada yada, so many other bits to think about. It's a game changer.
Yeah,
for you and for them. Okay, so that's one job. Thank you.
Yeah, Danny's saying job advert is candidate focused to attract the person.
Yeah.
And the job description is what does the role entail?
Yeah. There's a third one he's going to pop in any second now, guarantee it.
Manically typing away.
It's this. Okay, so that's just one thing that both the employer and the employee could do a little bit better. I was just put the third one into the job specification in there. Thanks, Danny.
Justification for the role, business case for internal. Oh no, that's so key. And I know you're going to that when we go into onboarding, but that whole for internal use is huge, isn't it?
Yeah. Why are you there? Why are you going to be there? Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Danny. So that's one thing. It's tiny, but it's tiny things. It's these little things that have such a big knock-on effect, because that means that the more people will go for the right jobs for the right reasons at the right time with the right employer. That immediately is going to make a difference to failed onboarding. I'm going to have to do a trial on this to see what difference it makes. So the next thing is in the screening stage. Oh, okay. So here, say you have been lucky enough to get through the bots. And let's face it, that if you're putting crap in, you're going to get crap out. But I don't know how good these bots are at going, yes, you're in, or no, you're out. I don't know. I'm sure they're wonderful. Could they be better? Probably. But then you've got a load of people picking up CVs who are full of bias, and they're going, nope, nope. Oh, that looks like somebody that looks like me, or sounds like me, or they lived over there. I lived. We can't help it. So there's this internal bias going on, which we need to be aware of. And the only way to be aware of that is to be much more self-aware, understanding where your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs come from, and being able to do that like that in the moment. I do happen to teach that as well, if anyone's interested. But it's an amazing leadership skill to have, because it stops you making the wrong decisions for the right reasons, wrong reasons. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So what else goes on in screening? In screening the future possible employee is stressed, nervous, not doing their very best because they haven't been made to feel comfortable. They haven't learned how to make it a meeting of minds. So they're not giving off their best self. They don't give the best answers, and you miss out on the most wonderful human because they were nervous.
Yeah.
So there's, so many bits going on. What are your thoughts? Anything else?
Well, I just think that whole part of when you're interviewing, you're sitting in your chair and you've only got your screen on, and the people that are sitting before you, you have no idea what's going on in their lives. You don't know if they've just come out of another interview, where they're at stage 7 and they've just had to present their next 5-year plan to the board, because people are being asked ridiculous things. That they might be going through all these different stages, and they must be, they could be stressed, completely fatigued, on the verge of burnout, and the stress because they've got to pay the mortgage, or whatever. We've no idea what's going on there. And if you don't make that person feel really comfortable and trying to empathize with their position, it's going to be a cancer.
Yeah. So you've got all of that going on. You've got interviewers who don't know how to interview. They're given a list of chronically rubbish. I nearly swore really badly. Really bad questions. They're not taught how to ask them. They didn't even probably want to ask them. Maybe they've stepped in for somebody else. I don't know. But people aren't asking good enough questions because they're following a tick box going, ask this. Tell me a time when you felt really stressed. You know, let's get real. Let's talk. Let's have a proper conversation as you would with a normal human being and see what this normal human being is like when they're not under pressure. So the quality of interviewing, the quality of questions. But then I also feel sorry for the people asking the questions and the quality of the interview, because have they been given the training and the support? Do they know what the job's even about and what they're looking for? Or have they been told to make up their own minds, in which case their own bias will say yay or nay to this person, and the next person that they see on date number 2 will hate them or like them. We don't know. So there's all these, it gets so complicated. But back to the dating analogy, that's your first date, isn't it?
Yes.
Your first date is it. So say your first date's done and you get on well and you think, oh, we had a drink. Next time we'll go for dinner. You have dinner, maybe some more people come, maybe friends will come and give you advice, or they'll tell you, they'll come and check you out, see if you're a good mate for their very best friend. They'll all have an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion, and your mind at this point is going, you're listening to all of this. What should I believe? Is it true? Whatever. So it can cause a problem here as well. And the other big problem here is, how many people does it take to make a blinking decision about someone?
Yeah.
How many levels of interview do you have to go through until people go, okay? The problem with this is trust. Everyone's so scared of getting it wrong that they get everybody, the mother, the dog, the horse, the cat, everybody involved to go, no, you're all right, Sarah, you can hire that person, so that you don't freak out about it. Because especially at senior executive level, it becomes very expensive. You get it wrong, and what do hirers worry about? Will it look bad on me if I've got it wrong? What if I make a mistake? So what's driving that process isn't the intent to necessarily find out if this person's the best. It's also, I don't trust myself to make the decision because I don't really know what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Or as you said, it's either they don't know or that they don't want the responsibility if it's going to fail, because it's a key position.
Absolutely. Couple of things come in from Danny and from Paul. Just pop those up.
Go on. Yeah. So I think it's the interview questions which is key, what should be discussed. Fast forward 12 months. What would it take for you to feel that you'd made the right choice? It is, a question you should always ask in a meeting, not in an interview. Not just a question from the candidate. The recruiter could benefit from picturing their perfect hire too.
Absolutely. I mean, candid conversations where you can be honest and explain what it's really like. And the other thing is, we're all looking for perfection, and that's a waste of time because it doesn't exist. So if we could just say honestly, do you know what? I'm really good at this, but I'm pretty rubbish at that. But when I am rubbish at that, just give me some feedback. At least I know when I'm joining you, if it goes wrong and this area is a problem, I can say, remember we talked about that. But the lack of honesty, I know someone who's hiring at the moment, and they said to me, I'm really worried about this, but I want this person to join, but I'm worried when they join that they're going to be put off by this person. And I said, tell them about this person now. Tell them they exist, tell them what they do, tell them it's all bluster and hot air, but tell them and give them the choice to walk away. Otherwise, they'll walk away in 6 months' time.
Yeah. So some more comments just quickly, because we're cracking on, aren't we? Different roles need different approaches. Is that? I think that's frightening. How many interviews for the same process? Yeah. Thomas has had to bow out. Lunch is over, but he'll watch the replay. Very interesting. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Pleasure, Thomas.
Yeah. And Andy says, oh, don't get me started on the fear of being wrong. It's always such a progress-limiting fear, and has become a big red flag for me as a sign of blame culture.
It has. It really has. Imagine a culture where everyone said, look, I trust you. This is what we're looking for. We've agreed this is a group. If you think it's right, just imagine how much faster things would go. Yeah. Anywho, we've got through date 2. Wonderful. We're on to date 3. It's lovely. We share some more. We might share a little bit more about ourselves, but again, there's a lack of honesty. There's a lack of clarity. We're still showing our best selves, and we're all on our best behaviors. But it's brilliant. Okay, let's just fast forward. We're going to get married. It's wonderful. We haven't lived together yet because we're old school, but we're going to just jump into marriage and then we're going to live together. And you suddenly start to see all of those cracks that were there all the time. You probably even had an inkling in your tummy that they were there, but you never asked, you never looked, you never shared. The culture was never truly explained. And guess what happens at this stage? Well, you've already got the fear of starting a new job anyway, and that is incredible. People are like, what if I've made the wrong decision? What if they don't like me? What if I don't fit in? What'll happen if I fail? I can't afford to lose this job. What would it look like if I fail again? I mean, quite a few people have been through one and then they go through another because their mindset hasn't been reset and put back in order. And then on the other side, you've got, so they're setting themselves up for failure, their mind. And then you've got the other side, which is the recruiters going, what if I've made a mistake? What if they're rubbish? Everyone's looking for failure. Everyone's looking for the problem, which is where the whole mindset piece needs to come in, and the support and everything else. So you get to this marriage bit and then you realize they leave the loose seat up, or they leave the loose seat down, and they leave their sock on the floor, or they never cook when they said they were a great cook. And all right, I'm oversimplifying it, but you get the point. It's suddenly there that you think, what the hell have I done? And then you struggle through, then you start affecting other people, other employees, your team, yourself, your family, your friends. You know, it goes on. The cost isn't just the money. It's how you feel and how you end up, and the amount of battered people, you know, really senior, incredibly brilliant people I work with who have been made to feel that small. And there are so many stages along the way when it could have been different. So I don't know how people feel about that, or the stages of getting married, which is I've related to obviously going through the whole interview process. But anything in there that stands out to you, Vanessa, as a yeah, actually, this is something that you can use because you're about to do this for people. You could be my study.
I could, yes, yeah. I think having that clear, perfect vision of what good looks like before you start. What, you know, as Danny said, that 12 months, fast forward 12 months, what does success look like? What does this role look like? And putting the processes in place. But that's onboarding. But having that vision before you start interviewing is key, isn't it?
Yeah. But how do you do it? I mean, you know, we're so ingrained to think of it as an interview. And then if you're the only one that doesn't, and the rest of your hiring team does see it as an interview, you've then got to have balls of steel and confidence and emotional self-control to help the rest of your team understand what you're trying to achieve. And that in itself can stop this from happening. There's so many ways this can be diverted from changing for the better, because there's so many people involved in the whole process, which is kind of why I like working at both ends, but I like working at the other end when they're in, because it's more of a discrete package. There is that I know what people need there, and we're going to talk about that in the following show note in a few weeks' time. This is really messy and bitty, and it requires the ability to stay focused, stay determined, stand your course, stand your ground, even when people are telling you to do it differently. So self-confidence, self-belief for both sides is really, really important. But I know if you got those steps better, even by 5%, the knock-on effect would be incredible.
Yeah.
So now we just got to do it.
Do it. Yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to next week and that whole how to onboard right from both sides.
So it won't be next week because we've got the 19th. We'll do it the week after.
Yeah.
So yes, I'll be sharing my thoughts on that. And you know, it's what I do isn't necessarily perfect, but it's a darn sight better than what people are getting at the moment. And it makes perfect sense because it's all based on what the human brain needs. So people talk about having a great strategy, and there's I don't know if I've got the book out now, but the first 90 days, people see that as their Bible. Wow, great strategy book. There's no how in there at all about how to do it from a human being perspective, like do this and do that and meet with these people. Yeah, we get that. It's brilliant. Thank you. But without the right mindset and the right behaviors and the right support and the right, I don't know, just the right stuff going on in your head, the strategy just gets gobbled up. I mean, it's pointless. It's no good without an effective way of doing something. But you do need a strategy, and the 90-day book is brilliant. I'm not saying it's not, but it's one side of the story. Final comment from Danny.
Yeah, he said it's odd when you think about it. If you've got an interview, the employer knows that it's highly likely that you can perform the role. So what we're really doing is validating that evidence, and A, and B, checking you're one of us with our 180 plus cognitive biases. It is bizarre, isn't it? Quite right.
180 cognitive biases. I mean, it's insane.
How do you tame them? You know, and that is bizarre. But you're absolutely right. You know, when your CV, your LinkedIn profile, the evidence if you post on LinkedIn, all this tells your future employer what you do and how you do it and what you've done before. So you should be able to tell from that. Yeah, they look a pretty good fit to deliver this vision that we've got for the next 12 months. This person looks right. So you're right. It's validating that evidence and fitting in. So Andy says, a really good session, very interesting and food for thought. He's done 150 plus interviews as an employer and only a handful as a candidate. Wow, gives me a lot to think about from both perspectives.
Good, I'm glad that's helped them. Just one other thing I want to say is that right now, because we're potentially going into a difficult time for businesses, all businesses want to stay the best. They want to stay afloat. They want to stay alive. And the only way that they're going to do that, and many of them will choose to cut costs and get rid of people and do this and do all like save. But the ones that are going to do really well will look at that much more carefully and think about, how can I keep the best people? How can I attract the best people? And to do that, it requires the best culture, which comes with the best leaders. And that requires investment and training consistently, because barely any of them are good enough. I'm sorry, but they're just not. And it's not because they don't want to be, it's just no one's ever taught them. And also you don't get the support on a regular enough basis to be the best you can be. And that doesn't mean in hiring in an external coach. Clearly, if you want to, love to come along. But it means that if your leader is a better coach and a better leader, they can coach and lead you. So yeah, let's get everybody just doing everything a little bit better and see what happens. Yeah.
And I think, I'd love to say that my onboarding from the last role that failed was all that person's fault and because of training, but it wasn't. It takes two to tango, doesn't it? Yeah. And one bad behavior leads to another, and you get into that kind of spiral, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Paul says, 100% Sarah, absolutely agree. He also says that he's enjoyed this all and he's looking forward to the 20th.
What's having you there?
Yeah. And Danny says, like any good marriage, it takes work from both sides. Culture absolutely separates the lovers.
I love it. I can always rely on Danny. That's brilliant. Well, I think we'll bring it to a close today. I've covered pretty much what I want to cover, unless there's anything you want to add, Vanessa. Just a reminder, really, that we're not on next week because of the Queen will be being buried on. Yes,
it's Monday. The funeral.
Monday, isn't it? Yeah. So it's in the UK anyway. It's a bank holiday, and we will all be respecting that day in whatever way that we will be respecting it. But we will not be online, that's for sure.
Yeah, so have a good week, everybody. And we are your working from home team. So if you do want to share thoughts, still do it. We're on LinkedIn. You can DM us. But we'll see you then in 2 weeks' time when we'll find out all about onboarding when you're in there.
Yeah, when you're
down to learn about it.
If you haven't already connected with each other, do, because we've seen some new faces on today. Really lovely to have you on board. So do drop if you're happy to connect, say yes, happy to connect, and people will get in touch with you. Some of you might be overloaded with connections and all the rest of it. But, you know, can you ever really have enough of wonderful people in your life?
Last word from Lee. Thanks, Vanessa and Sarah. Well presented and some really good stuff to think about. I think the next session is the one where I'm going to try and learn the most and to make sure that works. But yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you all. Have a good rest of your day and a wonderful week.
Yeah, and I'm going to forget because I've not put the graphics on again. So there we go. Everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye all.